how do you decide whether to build an AI or ML model in-house or just use something off the shelf?
I think mainly depends on the use cases of the business. So I think for most businesses, just using what is out there is the most convenient, because then your team doesn't need to, focus on like maintaining the AI, focus on, deploying all of that stuff, and you can just focus on building. It's the old mentality, buy versus build, right? And really the only edge case where I would recommend people to roll their own in-house AI is either if they have some advantage in-house through specific knowledge. So they might have new techniques that makes their AI special, or is able to, God forbid, compete with the big players, which I don't really think is possible unless you have millions upon millions of funding, right? But the specialization case is definitely sometimes there. Or you have a use case where you need to comply to specific data regularities. So meaning if you're maybe in Europe, right, and you just for some reason cannot use ChatGPT or something like that because you're working for the government or whatever, and you really need to prevent that data to leak outside of the European ecosystem, the European server system, right, then it could be a good idea to just host your own LLM, talk to that. But then you also need to know the trade-offs, right? Again, on the one hand, the trade-off is definitely just money and time of your developer team. But then it's also like the open source models, they're very, very good, but they're not as good as the closed source models. I know people said, hey, R1 DeepSeek is so good. And it is definitely super impressive feat of engineering. But if you compare things like attention capacity, for example, the proprietary models are still way ahead of that, especially Claude, who's right now the strongest model when it comes to pure attention capacity. But again, Grok and ChatGPT also outcompete DeepSeek R1 in these categories.